For decades, the world looked at Bruce Lee and saw something almost impossible. A man who moved faster than the camera could follow. A punch that traveled only a few inches, but looked powerful enough to send a grown man flying backward. A body so lean, sharp, and explosive that people stopped describing him as just an actor, or even just a martial artist. They described him as a force of nature. To millions of people, Bruce Lee was not simply a fighter. He was the closest thing cinema had ever seen to a real superhuman. But the deeper truth is far more emotional than the legend. Bruce Lee was extraordinary, but he was not made of myth. He was made of cells, nerves, muscles, oxygen, water, sodium, pressure, pain, discipline, and biology. The world saw the dragon on the screen. But behind that image was a human body working under extreme demand, and when that body failed on July 20th, 1973, at only 32 years old, people could not accept it. How could someone who looked so powerful disappear so suddenly? That question created decades of rumors. Some people called it a curse, some called it revenge, some whispered about poison. Others turned his final hours into a mystery story because his life already felt larger than reality. But Bruce Lee does not need fake stories to be fascinating. The real story is powerful enough. The official finding was cerebral edema, meaning swelling of the brain. At the time, the explanation focused on a possible severe reaction to Equagesic, a pain medication he had taken for a headache. Years later, some medical researchers proposed another theory. The water imbalance and dangerously low sodium, known as hyponatremia, may have contributed to the brain swelling. That theory is not proven as the final answer. But it shows something important. Medical science is still trying to understand the human reality behind the legend. This is not a story about Bruce Lee's DNA being decoded. There is no credible public evidence that scientists officially tested Bruce Lee's genome and discovered some hidden genetic secret. The mystery was not inside a fake DNA report. It was inside the body itself. It was in the nervous system that gave him speed, in the brain that gave him focus, in the muscles that made him explosive, and in the fragile biological balance every human being depends on. The world saw a superhuman fighter. But science reminds us that even the greatest fighter still lived inside a human body. Bruce Lee was born Lee Junfan on November 27, 1940 in San Francisco. That surprises many people, because he is remembered as the face of Hong Kong martial arts cinema. But from the beginning, Bruce Lee lived between worlds. His father, Lee Hoi Chuen, was a respected Cantonese opera performer. His mother, Grace Ho, came from a prominent Hong Kong family. Bruce was American-born, raised in Hong Kong, and shaped by cultures that did not always know where to place him. In America, he was often seen as too Chinese. In Hong Kong, he carried American energy. In martial arts, he challenged tradition. In Hollywood, he challenged the limits placed on Asian men. Long before many Americans knew his name, Bruce Lee was already performing on screen. He appeared in films as a child in Hong Kong. He grew up around cameras, opera stages, scripts, movement, rhythm, and dramatic timing. This part of his life is often overlooked. Bruce Lee was not simply a fighter who later learned how to act. He was an actor who learned how to make fighting feel emotionally true. His punches were not just attacks. They were expressions. His pauses were not empty. They created tension. His eyes could tell the audience that danger was coming before his body even moved. And there was another hidden ingredient in his movement: dance. In 1958, Bruce Lee won a Hong Kong Cha-Cha Championship. At first, that sounds like a small detail, but it helps explain why his screen fighting looked so different. Dance and fighting both require timing, balance, rhythm, control, and sudden shifts in weight. A fighter who understands rhythm can break another person's rhythm. A dancer who understands footwork can move before the audience realizes the body has changed position. When Bruce Lee moved, people thought they were seeing only kung fu, but inside that movement were cinema, dance, street experience, discipline, and a nervous system trained to react with frightening precision. Bruce studied Wing Chun under Ip Man in Hong Kong, but he did not stop there. He respected tradition, but he refused to be trapped by it. He read books, he took notes. He studied boxing, fencing, strength training, anatomy, philosophy, nutrition, and human performance. He did not want a martial art that looked beautiful only in practice. He wanted something alive, something direct, something honest. That thinking became Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. But Bruce did not want Jeet Kune Do to become another frozen style. He wanted it to remain a path of freedom, a way for the fighter to absorb what was useful, reject what was useless, and add what was personal. That philosophy was really Bruce Lee's life story. He absorbed Hong Kong and America. He absorbed theater and combat. He absorbed dance and discipline. He absorbed rejection and turned it into motion. He absorbed pain and turned it into study. He absorbed pressure and turned it into presence. But every revolution has a cost, and Bruce Lee's body carried that cost. People saw the speed, the muscles, the confidence, and the screen power. They did not always see the exhaustion, the injuries, the pressure, the recovery, the biological limits beneath the surface. In 1970, Bruce suffered a serious back injury during training. For a man whose entire identity was movement, that injury was devastating. He was reportedly forced into a long recovery and told he might never perform the same way again. Many people remember the Bruce Lee who attacked with impossible force. Fewer remember the Bruce Lee who had to lie still, rebuild himself, study his body, and fight his way back from pain. That chapter matters because it shows the real Bruce Lee, not a cartoon superhero, not an untouchable myth, but a human being with extraordinary discipline, facing the terrifying possibility that his own body might not obey him anymore. Bruce returned from that injury with even more intensity. His rise in Hong Kong cinema was explosive. The big boss made him a star. Fist of Fury turned him into a symbol of resistance and pride. The Way of the Dragon showed that he could write, direct, choreograph, and control his own screen identity. Then came Enter the Dragon, the film that would make him a global icon. But the tragedy is that Bruce Lee did not live to see the full force of what he had created. The world discovered his immortality after his body was already gone. Before his final death, there had been a warning. On May 10, 1973, Bruce Lee collapsed while working on material connected to Enter the Dragon. He was taken to a hospital. Doctors found cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. He recovered, but the event was serious. The brain sits inside the skull, and the skull does not stretch. When the brain swells, pressure rises. When pressure rises, the brain can no longer function normally. This is not weakness. This is biology. No muscle definition can stop swelling inside the skull. No speed can outrun pressure inside the brain. Then came July 20th, 1973. Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong, working and discussing future plans. He complained of a headache. He was given Equagesic, a medication that contained aspirin and the muscle relaxant meprobamate. Later, he lay down to rest. He never woke up. The official cause was cerebral edema. The explanation accepted at the time was that his body may have suffered a severe reaction or hypersensitivity to the medication. In simple words, the official story said the medicine may have triggered the brain swelling that killed him. Over the years, medical writers and researchers continued to examine the case. One later hypothesis suggested that Bruce Lee may have suffered from hyponatremia, a condition where sodium in the blood becomes dangerously low. Sodium helps control fluid balance, nerve signals, and the movement of water in and out of cells. If sodium drops too far, water can move into cells. If that happens in the brain cells can swell. That swelling can become cerebral edema. Some researchers have argued that Bruce Lee may have had risk factors that affected water balance. But this remains a theory, not a proven final answer. That point is important. The hyponatremia idea should not be presented as absolute fact. It is a medical hypothesis based on available information. It does not replace the official record with certainty. It simply gives another possible explanation for how brain swelling may have occurred. The safest and most respectful way to say it is this. Bruce Lee officially died from cerebral edema. The original explanation involved a possible reaction to Equagesic. Later medical analysis proposed that water imbalance and low sodium may have played a role. That is careful. That is honest. And it is still powerful. The reason this is so haunting is that Bruce Lee's entire public image was built around control. Control of movement, control of breath, control of distance, control of fear, control of the body. He trained himself to respond faster than most people could think. His nervous system seemed sharpened beyond normal limits. But the final crisis was not something he could kick, punch, block, or intercept. It was happening inside the body's chemistry, inside fluid balance, inside brain pressure, inside systems too small for the eye to see. Every human body depends on invisible balance. Every nerve signal depends on chemistry. Every muscle contraction depends on ions moving across cell membranes. Every heartbeat depends on electrical timing. Every brain cell depends on oxygen, glucose, sodium, potassium, water, and pressure staying in the right range. From the outside, a person can look strong, focused, and almost indestructible. Inside, the body is still negotiating with biology every second. That is what makes Bruce Lee's death so difficult to accept, and so important to understand. Bruce Lee's greatness did not come from being free of limits. It came from the way he fought limits. He fought the limits of race in Hollywood. He fought the limits of tradition in martial arts. He fought the limits of pain after his back injury. He fought the limits of being told that an Asian man could not carry a major screen story. He fought against fixed systems, dead habits, and small thinking. But the final limit was not a studio executive. It was not a rival fighter. It was not a villain from a movie. It was the human body. And that truth does not make Bruce Lee smaller. It makes him greater. If Bruce Lee had truly been superhuman, then his achievements would feel distant and unreachable. But if Bruce Lee was human, then everything he accomplished becomes even more powerful. It means a human being living inside a fragile body trained his mind and movement so intensely that people still study him more than 50 years later. It means his greatness was not magic. It was work. It was pain. It was imagination. It was discipline repeated until it looked like destiny. The lesser-known Bruce Lee is often more interesting than the myth. He was a child actor before he became a global martial arts icon. He was a cha-cha champion before many people saw him as the perfect fighter. He was a reader, a note-taker, a philosopher, and a constant student. He was not satisfied with being fast. He wanted to understand why speed worked. He was not satisfied with looking strong. He wanted strength that could express an idea. He was not satisfied with copying old forms. He wanted movement that told the truth in the moment. This is why Bruce Lee's philosophy still survives. His famous idea, be water, was not just a cool phrase. Water adapts. Water flows. Water crashes. Water takes the shape of what contains it, then wears down what tries to resist it. For Bruce, this was a way of living and fighting. Do not be stiff. Do not be trapped. Do not become a prisoner of one shape. But there is a tragic poetry in the fact that one later medical theory about his death also centers on water balance. The man who told the world to be water may have died, according to one hypothesis, from a hidden failure of water regulation inside the body. That is not proven, but it is haunting. Balance may be the key word in Bruce Lee's final story. Balance between speed and rest. Balance between ambition and recovery. Balance between discipline and damage. Balance between the public legend and the private man. Balance between water and sodium. Balance between the brain and the skull that protects it. Bruce Lee spent his life mastering balance in motion. But his death reminds us that the body also needs balance in chemistry. After he died, Enter the Dragon became a worldwide phenomenon. Millions of people watched him move with a force they had never seen before. But by then, he was no longer alive to witness the full impact. That is one of the deepest wounds in his story. The world met Bruce Lee completely only after it had already lost him. And because that loss was too painful, people created stories around it. But rumors do not honor him. Conspiracy does not honor him. Fake science does not honor him. What honors Bruce Lee is the truth. He was a real man who became legendary through discipline, vision, and courage. Not because he escaped biology, because he pushed the human body and mind to a level few people had ever seen. Bruce Lee changed cinema because he changed what the body could mean on screen. Before him, martial arts were often misunderstood by Western audiences. After him, the fighting body could be art, philosophy, rhythm, identity, and rebellion. He did not just throw punches. He expressed a whole worldview. He forced viewers to see an Asian leading man as powerful, intelligent, charismatic, and central. He opened a door that had been kept closed for too long. That achievement is larger than any rumor about his death. There is something heartbreaking about watching Bruce Lee now. Every movement feels alive. Every frame feels urgent. He does not look like a man saving energy for later. He looks like a man pouring everything into the present moment. Maybe that is why he still connects with people. Bruce Lee did not move like someone trying to be famous. He moved like someone trying to be free. Free from stereotypes. Free from dead tradition. Free from fear. Free from hesitation. Free from the small version of life that other people tried to hand him. His body became the message. But medical science reminds us that the message came through a human system. The nervous system can be trained, but it can also be overwhelmed. The brain can create genius, but it must be protected. Medicine can relieve pain, but in rare cases, the body can react dangerously. Water can symbolize freedom, but inside the body, water must be balanced. Strength can hide vulnerability. A legend can still die like a man. That is not disrespect. That is the deepest respect because it returns Bruce Lee from fantasy back to truth. Bruce Lee does not need invented DNA secrets. He does not need fake genetic claims. He does not need supernatural curses. His real life already contains everything a mystery documentary needs. A child born in San Francisco and raised in Hong Kong. A boy actor who became a fighter. A dancer who became a martial artist. A student of Wing Chun who created Jeet Kune Do. A man rejected by Hollywood who forced Hollywood to remember him forever. And a body admired as superhuman that was still governed by cells, chemistry, pressure, and fluid. That is why the public should stop trying to protect Bruce Lee with lies. Lies do not make him stronger. They only hide the real miracle. The real miracle is that a human being, born into pressure and limitation, shaped his body and mind so completely that the world still speaks his name with awe. The real miracle is not that he was beyond biology. The real miracle is that he was inside biology, inside pain, inside time, inside a fragile human frame. And still, he created something that feels eternal. So what was Bruce Lee's body hiding all along? It was hiding discipline behind speed, pain behind power, study behind instinct, vulnerability behind confidence, biology behind the myth. It was hiding the truth that the human body can become extraordinary, but it never stops being human. The brain that made him brilliant was still delicate. The nervous system that made him fast still depended on chemistry. The muscles that made him iconic still depended on balance. The legend was real. But the body behind the legend was real too. That may be the final lesson of Bruce Lee's life and death. He did not defeat mortality, no human body can, but he defeated something else. He defeated limitation. He defeated fear. He defeated stereotype. He defeated the small version of existence that the world tried to force on him. He refused to move through life slowly just because others expected him to stay quiet. He refused to copy forms that no longer served truth. He refused to let his body be only a body. He turned it into art. He turned it into philosophy. He turned it into cinema. He turned it into a message that still speaks every time someone watches him move. The message is not that humans are invincible. The message is that humans are fragile, temporary, and still capable of becoming extraordinary. Bruce Lee's body was hiding that truth all along. Not a secret code, not a magic gene, not an official DNA revelation, a greater truth. The world saw a superhuman fighter. But behind the speed, behind the muscles, behind the scream, behind the legend, there was a human body. And that is exactly why Bruce Lee will never be forgotten.